Center for Science and International Affairs, and it's my great honor and pleasure to welcome back to Harvard Grigory Yavlinsky, the leader of the Russian Democratic Party, Yabloko, a Russian presidential candidate, and one of the great political leaders in the Russian democratization process over the past decade. Indeed, if you look at the political scene of democratic leaders who've been active parts of Russian politics since the late 1980s, and beginning with the appearance of the Soviet Union, or the disappearance of the Soviet Union, and the emergence of Russia just 10 years ago, Grigory is the last one left standing. Gorby has gone off to his just desserts. Yeltsin has gone back to his bottle or whatever, okay? But Yavlinsky is still in the front line, and the best of Yavlinsky is yet to come. 10 years ago, literally last spring, Grigory Yavlinsky, who was a young Russian political leader, came here to Harvard, bringing with him 7 or 8 members of his epicenter, which was a research group in Moscow, to work with a group that I organized, he and I co-chaired, that included Stan Fisher and Jeff Sachs and Bob Blackwell and others, to develop a program that was called the Grand Bargain, which called for Western Marshall Plan-like assistance to Russia for an orderly transition to democracy and a market economy. Grigory and I went and presented this to Mr. Gorbachev in Moscow on several occasions, and then ultimately to President Bush here in the U.S. I can say we were equally successful with both audiences, okay? Each said niet, okay? But nonetheless, the framework that provided has actually informed lots that's followed, and Grigory will have something to say about that tonight. Our speaker tonight is a man of many terrific facets and distinctions. If he were just a professor here at the Kennedy School, we would be fortunate, because he's a professional economist who thinks of things as a political economist in the way that the Kennedy School tries to train people. And he just 2 years ago published at Princeton University Press a very good economics book called Incentives and Institutions, which is the first analysis of the transformations of a former Soviet or command-style economy and an understanding of the process for that, a book that's used in textbooks. So in academic terms, you could think of him. As an institution builder, he created the first research institute, independent research institute on economic affairs in Russia, Epicenter, and the group of young people whom he recruited to that and who came with him here 10 years ago to the school to spend 7 or 8 weeks struggling about what this plan should be, are actually all now very distinguished Russian political leaders themselves. So Michael Zadornov went on to be finance minister. The 2 Mikhails, who are both of them, are both heads of committees. All of them are at least members of the Duma. And some of the people of our group went on to distinction as well. So it was an interesting mixture. But Grigory started the first independent research institute. Then he founded a political party, now first Yabloko, and now called the Russian Democratic Party, Yabloko, and has been the only person actively involved in the Duma elections and the presidential elections in each of the elections that's brought Russia to this point. So we're very fortunate tonight to have Grigory here. He's going to talk to us about Russia and about the challenges in Russian-American relations. So let's welcome Grigory Yavlinsky.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really very privileged to be again here at the forum. It's very important for me to listen to your questions, to know your reactions, and to discuss with you the most important problems of the current developments. Russia is such a country that whether Russia is weak or strong, it's always related to everything what's going on in the world, or almost everything. And I had a chance to be here and to present several very important issues about my country. First, it was in '91, when we were developing a special plan to avoid such a deep suffering and unsuccessful developments in our economic reforms. But unfortunately, Mr. Gorbachev went to the G7 meeting in London with a different plan, and in '91 happened in August '91 happened a coup. The second time I was here at this podium after the '96, and I was speaking about Russian economic reform. And I was trying to convince that if the reforms after the presidential elections of '96 would go in the same way, then only blind people can see that the debt crisis is something which we would have very soon ahead. In '98, in August '98, that happens. Now, I'm here, I think, to share with you with the important issue. A lot of things changed in Russia after 11th of September. A lot of things changed in the world. A lot of things changed in Russian politics. So I'm going to speak to you about new stage and new possibilities in Russian, American, and Russian itself developments in this year and 1 or 2 years from now. Maybe even less, because the time is going so quickly. I would start with some explanations about Russian economy, then about Russian democracy, and then I would go to Russia-US relations. I need it because I want to share with you, first of all, about my vision, what's going on in Russia, what Russia represents today, and then we would go to the relations with the United States. I'm not going to analyze what's going on with the United States itself, because you're just here and you know that even better than I. In every newspaper you can see just now a very positive analysis about Russian economy after '98. And this is true. The figures are much better than in any year after '91. But I want to say that I think that the economic growth in this year would be visibly slowed down because of 3 major reasons. First of all, as you know, that main reasons for economic growth in Russia were the devaluation of the Russian currency and very high prices on oil. I want to report to you saying that these major factors of economic growth in Russia almost exhausted. And the only possibility for expanding sales now is the better quality, new technologies, lower costs. Whether growth would require more investments and radical change in the quality of management in the Russian economy and also in the political environment. I don't think that the Russian government, if to take into consideration the statement of Russian government in the Economic Forum, already understands that quite clearly. But I think this is the key thing which the government should understand as soon as possible. Second reason is that lower prices and uncertain prospects of international oil markets made at least some of the larger Russian companies to revise and downscale their investment programs. And third one is political and personal concerns of a Russian business elite. Fears on new attacks on the business people who had acquired large assets through the connections with the Yeltsin's family. This is an unavoidable problem It's almost institutional problem in Russia. The way how we made reforms, the way how we made privatization now creates the problems of this very high level of instability. And the agreement which appeared after the 2000 elections about peaceful coexistence between old and new elite now is very much under the threat. For all these reasons, I don't expect economic growth in the first quarter and maybe even in the second quarter as well. And I want also to underline that already we have inflation 1.2% a week. So that means that we can expect at the end of the year, even if that will be on this level, we can expect in the end of the year about 30–35% for the end of the year. Second point about Russian, second section or second paragraph about Russian economy, which I want just simply to touch, is the thing which I want to congratulate Russian government. Russian government have just now maybe the most interesting and most promising, at least part of the tax system among all the countries which I know. Russian government made the thing which I was advocating for 10 years, including this place. I was fighting with IMF, with the Honorable Stan Fisher, and the other man who is now retired from IMF, Mr. Kangdesu, saying that the low taxes is always better than the high. And they don't want to listen. They were saying that they need a balance, and for that balance, as a bureaucrats, they were saying we need these figures. I was advocating the tax about 10% and flat rate. After the elections, immediately, it was a first meeting with the President Putin. I came third, he came first, and he said, what am I going to do first if you would be in my office? I said, if I would be in your office, first of all, I'm going to make flat rate and 10% tax, income tax. He's saying, I promise, I'm going to think about that. In the same year, it was adopted by the parliament because he pushed it through the 13% tax and flat rate. What we have just now. You remember the stories about that Russians are not able to collect taxes and all that and all this? All IMF delegation coming to Russia saying that Russia is not able to collect taxes. And I was trying to explain that 45% income tax, no one normal government is able to collect in Russia, never. Russians would not pay this tax, never. Not now, not afterwards, simply they don't want to do this. They were asking me, how do you know? I said, because I'm Russian, I know that. This is my explanation to you. For sure, they wouldn't pay that. What tax they're going to pay? I said, about 10%, not more. We are a poor country. The people were very poor for a very long time. They're not going to pay 45%, and only flat rate. That's the only thing which is possible to be used in Russia. Now we have not 50% collection of taxes, revenues. We just now have more than 90%. We have the better levels of the revenues than we have before 98, before all kind of crises. And together with the cutting of the expenditures of the budget, which is also, I want to praise the government for that, we just now want to say that the proportion to GDP, the corresponding expenditure stands approximately 2.5% in 2000 and 2001. This is a very good number. And this is much better than we have before 98, so before crisis. It was 5.4%. The main advantage which the government have, certainly together with the president, that the president, in the difference of the previous president, have enough authority to collect the necessary taxes from the large companies. The question if he chooses to do so, this is a different question, but he has such an authority. And that certainly supports the budget very much, especially if the prices of oil would be higher than $20 a barrel, we would be on the safe side. So, as a conclusion of that part, I want to say that Russia have no problem with the debt burden at all. We can easily manage our debt, foreign and internal, and we can be in a good position with this. That's why in the policy of the future external borrowing, this is the two major positions. One of them is the position certainly of the government. They are happy and they want to take money from abroad. And the other position, which I share, is the position that Russia must stop all kind of borrowings, including IMF borrowings. This is not acceptable anymore. The capital flight from the country is still very big, $20 billion a year. $20 billion a year for the country which have a budget $60 billion is a pretty big capital flight out. But I want to say that the criminal part of that, I think, much less than some people want to think. Mainly, this is the money which is left abroad for business considerations and mainly for safety reasons. So it's a clear case of a political stability in the country. And very often, Russia is accused on corruption, and this money is explained as a corruption, and even the chairman of central bank is from time to time making a special, very special announcements that it's not simply 20 billion a year, it's more than 4 billion a month, and things like that. But on my judgment, it is not real, and I would not believe in that. What about the corruption? I want to say that I made a special investigation on this issue, and I want to report some results on that to you. The result of this investigation and the studies is that Russian corrupted bureaucracy and Russian corrupted, whoever it is, Russian corrupted business or corrupted bureaucracy is not corrupted politician, is not keeping their money in North Korea. Maybe it sounds strange for you. And they are not also keeping their money in Saddam Hussein banks. And I can tell you in which banks they are keeping this money. Some of them are not far from here. Some of them are in Switzerland. Some of them are in Britain and the other very famous countries. So when you are criticizing Russia for corruption, it is necessary, it is fair to say that at least it's a joint venture. So we would never achieve such a level of corruption if you would not be prepared to be of such a big help with us. Yes? That was the only way to do this. Okay, so I want to ask everybody, when this is a discussion about Russian corruption, about Russian laundering, about all these things, it's necessary to understand it's always a joint venture. It can be done by Russians ourselves only. Now, the banking sector, as our very painful thing for us, is certainly not in a very good shape. We still have no banking system. But those small banks which we already have after '98, they're trying to work without taking money from the government. If to speak about the economic policy, I want to say that there are one major direction. We should go as far as possible and as fast as possible with the institutional changes in the country. It's a tax system, it's a labor court, it's a land legislation, it's a foreign currency control, which must be absolutely different to what we have at the moment. So generally speaking, Russia slowly but moving forward with its economic reform. It's much less than I want to see, but much more than I often read in the Western newspapers. Another issue which I think is crucial to explain what's going on in Russia is domestic politics and a state of democracy in Russia. Here I want to say that I have a very negative view on what's going on. First of all, press. Secondly, elections. And thirdly, judiciary. What about press? I want to say that censorship, control of access to the press, manipulating by the press, establishing the press as a mean of propaganda, full control on the major state channel of television. It's very serious. It's uncomparable with 92, 93, 94, 95. Completely different situation. The television works in Russia, 80% entertainment, very low quality, 10% of the ideas which are coming from the 2 or 3 policymakers from Kremlin, and then sports and weather. That's it. No television at all. Finished. The same situation, almost the same situation with the newspapers. Certainly you can have a newspaper when you would come as a tourist. When you would come as a tourist to Moscow, you would be sad that we have a lot of different nice things in Moscow. We have Kremlin museums, we have a Tsar cannon, we have nice shops, we have a zoo, we have Democrats in the parliament, we can show you them. And also we have we have some newspapers which openly can criticize everybody. Our Democrats are writing their articles and so on. So this is for such purposes. No possibility to express the views on the constant base. No possibility to make a political line to your voters. I have millions of voters. I have a right to express my political views there. There is no access. There is a stop list with the names and there is a stop list with the topics, which are not allowed completely. It's a very tough situation there. Elections, all the regional elections, almost all of them are manipulated. Look at the elections in the Far East, look at the elections in the Middle Russia and Rostov, everywhere. Manipulated almost openly. Almost openly. And judicial system, this is the situation with this when it is used like a political tool, like a political weapon. Simply, if you want to do something, you are immediately using this tool as a knife or as a gun, if you want to kill your political opponent. Well, if to summarize all that, I would say that I want to repeat what I was saying 2 years ago, once again. It is the attempt to create managed democracy or controlled democracy. It's a very special system. It's a system of quasi-democracy or whatever you would call it, but the idea is that you have all democratic procedures, you have all democratic facade, but you have no substance. So this is a very well-known Russian policy of creating Potemkin villages. Now we need this Potemkin village to be well accepted in the different lunches and dinners and everywhere abroad, so we have everything. But I want to remind you that the most democratic constitution in the world in the 30s was the Stalin's constitution. So we are just well experienced how to organize such things. But I want to explain some small difference which you can find between the totalitarian system and nowadays system. The totalitarian system was simply destroying democratic institutions, simply destroying them. This system, the system of the managed democracy, of the controlled democracy, is not destroying democratic institutions. It's adjusting democratic institutions to its own needs and goals. It's a different nature. In case they are not able to adjust it, they are replacing it by something different. You don't like the journalists' union? No problem. We would create media union and we would simply push you away from the scene. The same with the political parties, the same with the television. No, they're not destroying private television. No problem. You can have a private television. But if they don't like this television, they would change the owner. They would simply change the owner and put the other owner and he would do what they want to do with this. And this is all really serious because it's a small group of people which in this way manipulating the whole thing. They came to that step by step by the experience from 96 to 99. And the last observation, I'm certainly doing that shortly in order to be more clear in my main part of my presentation when I'm going to speak about Russia-US relations. I want to say about Chechnya. So the war in Chechnya is a terrible, very complicated and very difficult thing. First of all, it's certainly a massive suppression of the human rights. Massive, every day, on all directions, in terrible forms. But now the situation in Chechnya is certainly very different from that which was in 94, 95, 96. It's a different, completely different scene and completely different situation. Now we have there a very big, as a result of federal policy as well, not as simply that happened so, because the policies which were taken by federal power were completely wrong. We came just now to the situation where we have in Chechnya a very big part, which I can call terrorism, in the plain substance of this world. There are some part of people who are, I can call them separatists, and there are a big part of people who are normal. The question is who is able to know who is who and what is what. This is completely impossible. There's 100,000 people, troops, military troops are staying there, and so all that is such a complete mess. Sooner or later, I would prefer to have it sooner. The political solution is needed, and there is only one political solution for that. If in Moscow, under President Putin, it will be a round table among all the forces which are interested in the political solution for Chechnya, not excluding anybody from Chechnya itself. This is the only way forward. And I was saying to the President that several times, and I'm insisting on that, sooner or later that would happen only in this way. All the other solutions is simply impossible because there is a too complicated just now situation there. Now I'm coming to the most important part in my speech after I explained what's going on in Russia. After 11th of September happens the things which we never expected. President Putin made such a dramatic U-turn after his meeting with the leaders of North Korea who were traveling months and months along Russia in bulletproof train, which was very strange. It's like a dream or something, like a nightmare. Then he was inviting somebody from Libya, Gaddafi, to come first to Belarus and then to Russia. Then he was visiting Fidel Castro and saying that this is the best place in the world. Then we have frequent visits from Iran, Iraq. So that was developing to the very strange direction, almost the adequate direction to what we have in our democratization process. After 11th of September, suddenly everything changed immediately, in one day. As soon as President Putin was able to find President Bush, he made him a call. And 10 days later, on the 24th, or 13 days later, on the 24th of September, he invited for a meeting with him leading Russian politicians from the Duma and from the State Council, that means the Russian senators. It was about 21 persons on this meeting, and he said, what do you think about our future? What should we do in that situation? And the discussion was very long, and the political forces which were presented at this meeting were speaking in such a way. One of the persons who was there said that it's necessary to support Taliban. 18 people said that Russia must be neutral. 18. And only two people were saying that it's necessary to give unconditional and immediate support to the United States and anti-terroristic coalition. And then President Putin said that now I want to make my own statement, and his statement was about as you know, about unconditional and immediate support. So that was his personal decision. And that was very interesting because this decision was contrary to all team that President Putin was collecting around him in 2 years. So it was really personal decision. Certainly, he had a very strong tactical reasons for that decision, and it was great that he understood them. 2 years before that, even 1 year before that, summer 2000, maybe you noticed, maybe not, Russian Council of Security Council made a statement that we are going to bomb the camps in Afghanistan, which are preparing the fighters for the Chechnya and so on. So for tactical reasons, it was absolutely clear that maybe for the first time in the history of Russia, using someone's help and someone's force, we can solve our problem. And it was a really very difficult problem for us. And then suddenly, unexpectedly, this help came. So that was not a gift for us, and we were not giving a gift, and it was not a gift for us. We were just cooperating, and that from the very beginning. It was really seriously coincide interest for us. And I'm just praising the President for understanding of this issue. Maybe now everybody can see it's not so difficult to understand that, but at that time it was rather surprising. But it's also have a strategic side of the issue, not only tactical. We had alliances with the United States before. We had alliance in the First World War, we have alliance in the Second World War. Now we have alliance at the beginning of the 21st century. But that were the tactical alliances, and now we can speak about strategic alliances. Both presidents are talking about strategic partnership. The question is, what means strategic partnership? And I want to say that I think that strategic partnership means absolutely new quality of the partnership, new quality of the relations between Russia and the United States. In most general terms, strategic partnership for Russia means to understand and to introduce in everyday life the most important key values, which are the basicals for the Western society and the United States. That means for us strategic partnership. For our economy, that means that we have finally to separate business from power. All major businesses in Russia is made through the authorities and through being engaged with the authorities and with the power. Democracy, which must be expressed very clearly through the free press and the independent juridical system, I want to underline independent juridical system, is one more precondition for strategic partnership. And certainly human rights as the main value and the main goal even for the political development of the country. That means for Russia strategic partnership in general terms. For the United States, it's also not an easy task, by the way. First of all, for the first time, for the United States, it's necessary not to make stakes on the group of people or on individual. Not to repeat the experience with Mr. Gorbachev and then with Mr. Yeltsin, when the group and individual collapsed, the foreign policy towards Russia of the United States and the West collapsed with them. No Republican administration, no Democratic, will never believe in country, not in an individual in Kremlin. So it's necessary to see the country, not as simply a leader. It's very good that the Russian and American leader have good relations between each other. It's a good precondition, but it's only a precondition. It is demand on this strategic partnership to see Russia as a country which is a partner, not simply a leader of that country, which would sit in the Kremlin, would have a strong hand, and would keep in this strong hand all Russians because they don't understand something like democracy or economy. That wouldn't work in this way. Secondly, it's very important for the United States to understand the situation with the Russian borders. Russia has the longest borders with the most unstable regions in the world. And the ultimate goal for Russia is to keep these borders in order, meaning that we want to survive in the current borders, and we want to become European countries within the current borders. And we have a very dangerous situation in the south and southeast, because the borders with China, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Caucasus, and all that, this is the real challenge to Russia. It's a real threat to us. So that is the one thing which is also very important for the United States to understand. And thirdly, for the United States, if to speak in a general terms, it's extremely important to answer the question how the United States want to see Russia from a strategic point of view. If the United States see Russia from the strategic point of view as a European country within the current borders, as a strong democracy, and understand its role which is playing in this Eurasia part, so that means that Russia and the United States can be strategic partners. But that also have substance in practical terms. What does the strategic partnership mean for the United States in practical terms? First, demonopolization of OPEC in the world market of oil. Secondly, stabilization, I think forever, situation with China. Let me put it in such a diplomatic way. Thirdly, non-proliferation. Fourth, is the stabilization of the borders with Belarus, Ukraine, and in Europe in general. And fifth, which is one of the most important things at the moment, I want to give you the formula. Weaker Russia, more terrorism in the world. Stronger Russia, less terrorism in the world. This is playing like this. But also, I want to say that there is a number of the issues in the world, not only for the US, which, from my point of view, needs strong and deep, serious strategic cooperation between Russia and United States. Balkans, Middle East, Pakistan, India, Taiwan situation, ecology, international crime and drugs, European security, and finally, North Korea, Iran, and Iraq. All these problems can be much better understood and much easier pushed forward with the strategic cooperation with these two countries. I don't say that these problems can be solved without Russia. Maybe there is a possibility to solve all these problems without Russia, but with Russia, I think it would be much more effective and much more stable and much more deeper to find the answers on these questions. So, first step from the Russian side to such kind of cooperation was made on the 11th of September. Now the second step. Second step is a proposal about the new quality of the strategic partnership. I want to underline, it is not NATO. It is not Russian membership in NATO. Personally, I think if Russia would be in NATO, NATO would collapse simply next day. And by the way, we have nothing against NATO at all, because more people in NATO, more mass, and we feel ourselves more safe. Okay? So, secondly,
what I want to say that it's not only the negotiations about warheads, as it was at the Soviet time. No. It's creating a new institutional framework for the 21st century, political and military. Is Russia ready for that? And I want to tell you that look at the signals which Russia is giving. Putin shut down the bases on Cuba and Vietnam simply by his own, simply to give the signal. Then he was very shy, I would say very limited and very modest on ABM decision of Bush. Next week, Bush said that we are going with NATO to Latvia. Once again, no hysteria from Russia, no noise, that's okay. Not okay, but do what you want. Thirdly, even when United States said such a strange thing, that first of all, no treaties, very civilized point. Secondly, we are going not to destroy the nuclear warheads, but to store them. But to store the warheads, about 4,000 warheads, to store that means, in plain Russian language, that means Russia is an enemy. Because you don't need so many warheads against any other country in the world, only against us. Because you have only in Russia 2,000 objects to attack by nuclear means. We are saying 1,500 warheads, you're saying 1,700, but not only that, we are going to store the others. Even after that, President of Russia was very limited and was very reserved about that and start negotiating, explaining that this is not a very smart intellectual decision. March last year, Russia making one more step. Already a year passed. President Putin is giving the proposal of creating Russia European or Russia NATO anti-ballistic tactical defense system to Robertson, to the General Secretary of NATO, offering Russian territory, Russian industrial military complex, Russian military possibilities for that. No response for the year. So I think it's the right time to put it all together, these things, and to say, look at this is real signals. Why the West always, when Russia is giving a hand to shake, saying that that means that Russia is weak? Yes, Russia is weak, but we are not about that. We are speaking about the possible cooperation in the most important areas. So I'm talking just now about possibility to create a political military alliance. Russia is not looking at the moment about any gifts, about no free lunches. We don't need free lunches. We don't need anything with the loans, with the credits, with the debt. It's not a bargain. We were making grand bargain here at the beginning of the 90s. That was a time for bargain. Now it's time for joint venture. It's a completely different thing. It's a time for joint venture for solutions of major world problems, which I named, and joint venture for the 21st century. My lecture was titled Challenges and Strategies. I'm coming to the end, I feel yourself very strongly. So, challenges. So what are the challenges? I would start with the challenge to the United States. United States is just now the strongest country in the world. It is the country which in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, 10, 9, 10 places everywhere in everything and in the whole. So all the other countries starts from after 10, okay? The challenge, what policy would take United States under these conditions? It's a very difficult thing. What is clear that previous policies is not working in this. Competition over, you win. So what are you going to do? How you're going to communicate with the other parts of the world, with the world in general? Now, what positive programs with the war on terrorism you are going to use? How you're going to fight the terrorists in the positive way, not through only the weapons, that's clear. Now, what would be the positive response? What would be about education in the world? What would be about starvation in the world? What would be about that? Then, it is necessary to understand that traditional understanding of the military force, which was in the 20th century, almost finished. It's not finished yet, but it's coming to the end. As I said just an hour before that, United States were prepared to fight elephants, bears, lions, and other giants. But now the enemy is mosquitoes. And this weapons is not adjusted to these mosquitoes, you know. With a very big gun or with the aircraft carrier, it's very hard to fight with the mosquitoes. And the 11th of September said that this is a new quality of threat. It's coming from the different direction. And that means it's not appropriate for such things. It's a new reality. It's the question and the challenge, how the United States is going to behave itself as a, it's very hard to say for the Russian politician, as a senior partner. What it's a fact already, so what it's going to do. Because United States, not only Russia have internal problems, and the United States as well have a serious internal problems, like influence of military-industrial complex, which would be just more and more coming up after these decisions, arrogance of power, balancing the society, economic problems, which you know very good. So it would be a lot of different changes in the world. But from the history we know that United States were responding to very serious challenges before in a very wise way. The challenges were very, very serious. It was slavery, it was poverty during the crisis of 28, 33 and depression. It was segregation, and every time it was a wise answer on that challenge. So now, what would be the response? For Russia, the challenge is real democracy and market, and special challenge to Russian political elite, to teach ourselves to be a junior partner. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's necessary to forgive all imperial dreams forever and to learn ourselves to be a junior partner. This is the challenges, and now, very short, what are the strategies? Strategical partnership in the new framework of political and military alliance is a strategy for security, for overcoming the terrorism, and for beginning creating something new for the world and for the 21st century. And that would change a lot in internal politics of the United States, and by the way, in internal politics of Russia. I said to you that I see a lot of very difficult, very painful, almost unexplainable problems in our internal policies, but if we would find a common language for our strategic partnership, that would demand in Russia new people for that policies, new criteria, and new people which would be able to realize new goals. This is the crossroads for the United States and for Russia. This is the crossroads for many countries, but first of all, for the United States. And it is an intellectual challenge. In politics, which can be, the answer on this challenge can predominate the 21st century. I hope that the United States and Russia would make a wise choice. Thank you.
Okay, we've got about a little more than 15 minutes for questions and answers. We're going to have short questions and short answers, okay? Grigory has actually already covered many questions that people might otherwise have asked, and he's raised so many issues that if we asked all the questions, we would be here all night. But we're going to take short questions, short answers, and let me start with Ken Hebner. What you should do is say your name, put your question, and Grigory's going to give a short answer.
Okay. My name is Ken Hebner. My question is, what role will Russia play in with OPEC in the world oil scene? Will they cooperate with OPEC, or will they pursue an independent course? And what is the outlook for Russian oil production?
Okay, I would give the short answer. First of all, I think that Russia must be taken into the International Energy Agency. Then, for the very beginning, the prices on oil must be balanced inside the members of International Energy Agency and balanced and subsidized, especially for Russia, in order to give the incentives to be there. And secondly, I think that it's absolutely necessary to greatly increase the investments in Northeast Asia, meaning in Siberia, and Russia, I think, must be ready to give the control on some pipelines to the Western partners in exchange of having a stable and endless, in this case, market in the West. And that would very quickly solve a lot of Russian problems, economic problems, and also demonopolize OPEC completely.
Please.
Good evening, Grigory Alexeyevich. First of all, as one of the Russian students here, I would like to welcome you here, and it's very nice to see one more Russian face here. And I wanted to congratulate you because your rating just increased by 1%. I just read this from internet. So, and now the question. You're well known in Russia as probably the second largest criticist of the present Russian policy. The first is Zyuganov, the leader of communists. So my question is, just as you're having probably the best connections with American politics and American business spheres, what do you do both in Russia on the question of those joint ventures and in the United States to create and promote those investment projects and those projects which just gain new technologies and put new technologies?
Sorry, the question, please.
So the question, what do you do both in America with your friends, with your partners to gain some new investments to Russia, and both in Russia in the legislative sphere to create a very good climate for the joint ventures in Russia?
Oh, okay. What about the United States? I have no partners here, and it's a sad story, but I have no business here, and so I'm absolutely hopeless in the United States. As far as I understand, the only person who has a serious business here is just our president, which have business with the President of the United States, who had a chance to look at his eyes and to see his soul. And they both said that they are going to make business with each other. So this is as I said, maybe the main precondition. And what we are doing in Russia we are trying to put back Russia on track with the free press. We want to establish in Russia independent judicial system and court. We also want to have in Russia, as you maybe know, fair elections in which we are taking part every time. And we are really we have about 7.5% in the polls in Russia. 32% in the polls have communists, 30% have Putin with his party of power, and then third we are going about 10%. But that is a very good result if you have no television for 2 years already. So everybody have to forget you, but now the people still have that in mind. That is what we are doing there.
Let me go to the
Thank you.
Lodge. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. You mentioned the need for Russia to accept its role as a junior partner internationally. I was wondering if you think that most members of the Russian political and military elite share that view, or if you think they're likely to anytime soon.
They don't.
Do you think there's anything the United States can do to make that a more appealing role for Russia?
Sorry?
Do you think that there's anything the United States can do to make that a more appealing role for Russia and to engage Russia in cooperation in that role?
To make it more appealing.
I have a view, maybe I'm not right, but I have a view that the level of education of American political elite, especially military, is a little bit higher than Russian. So they should understand the realities which they created themselves. So I don't see any alternative to what I said. Sooner or later that would come to that. Maybe with this government, maybe with the next government, but I don't think that we have a lot of time. I'm just not inventing something which is something absolutely unreal. Look, if you would make your own analysis on all your own press, you would see that more or less every other newspaper is coming to that idea. Simply, I'm very happy. I came to United States, to Washington, meeting the officials in the government, talking to them on these different things. It was a week ago. The climate was different. Now the climate's changed. After the State of Union speech and things like that, this is the developments. I'm very happy today. Colin Powell said in the Congress that now it's already the decision that it'll be the signed treaties on nuclear things. That's okay. So I was not talking about the rejection of making treaties at all, which was very strange for me. And I had such ideas only heard them when I was a student. The boys and girls were discussing whether they need treaties between each other or not. Since that time, I have no chance even to hear something about in politics that the people saying, we don't need any treaties anymore at all. We are simply friends. So it means friends. And by the way, it was a strange argument. It was said that we are friends with Britain and we have no treaties. Sorry, and NATO? NATO is a big treaty. Different thing, it's not working, but you have a treaty.
Up here in the lodge, please.
My name is Mike Weissman. I wonder if you can speak to what you think the U.S. and Russia must do in the joint venture, as you put it, of preventing the theft of Russian nuclear material by potential terrorists.
Okay.
What would be the nature and the content of a joint venture as it relates to preventing theft of nuclear materials, especially from Russia?
As I said to you, that we are in a very strange situation. Theoretically, first going the internal changes and then external, theoretically. Theoretically, it must be made in such a way that we should finish our reforms and then to give you a call saying, hello, it's Washington, it's Moscow. We already finished the reforms. We are ready for partnership. Okay? So I was waiting for such a situation for 10 years. It's not working. It's not coming. It's terrible. So I'm just now looking at vice versa situation. It's happened so that the strategic partnership may be so important for domestic life in Russia through changing the people in the Russian government, in the Russian official, for reaching the goals of this strategic partnership, which would be one of the most important elements to stop the proliferation of some nuclear things or whatever. Because the official position is non-proliferation is absolutely 100% accepted by Russia, by all means. So the way is changing people, creating new goals, implementing new principles in accordance with this strategic partnership. And that can have positive impact inside.
Okay, to this gentleman.
Good evening, Mr. Yavlinsky. My name is Konstantin Rozanov, and you mentioned the economic business elite problem created by the privatization reform and the Yeltsin ties, which causes economic inefficiency and general instability. What solutions do you see for that problem?
I see only one solution. That must be just an accord between the president and the major business groups which would have special substance. The substance would be like that. What happened before, I'm not interested. But from tomorrow, new rules of the game. That would give stability to all these people, and that would give the president right to operate in a new manner. That's what I'm going to do when and if I will be a president.
Good. To this lady.
Good evening. I wanted to ask the question about the junior partnership and what does it imply for Central Asia. I know that America is expanding its military bases in Central Asia, and what is the reaction of Russia? Thank you.
First of all, I heard this one more example, very strange. I heard 2 points from United States. One was that we would stay there almost forever, and the other is, no, we are not crazy, we are going to stay there for some time, and then we would leave. I think it will be a very difficult enterprise for United States to stay there for a long time, but if United States are ready, first, to protect those states, and that means Russia, from Islamic fundamentalism, if United States being there are ready to stop the drug traffic, and if the United States is ready to stop there the different criminal routes and black money which is coming from that region, it will be a very positive outcome for Russia. Sure, because for us to stop the drug traffic is a vital thing, simply vital thing. If certainly the United States would be able to do that there, it would be not easy. And I simply want to say that what happened just now in Afghanistan, it's not the end of the end, it's only the end of the beginning. I think one can say for sure, it's only the end of the beginning, and the euphoria that everything done is a very, I would say, it's too early to say that everything done. It's only the beginning of the story. And stronger would be Russia, less would be the opportunities for the terrorism in the world. Weaker would be Russia, more would be opportunities for the terrorism.
It's a good syllogism. Please, on the lodge.
Hi, my name is Rachel Cherry. I wanted to ask you a question about economic development within Russia. I know there have been some land reforms passed in the spring, and I was wondering if there are any more land reforms up for reading in the Duma, and if you feel that the land reforms which have been passed have already yielded positive results in the economy and given people more confidence, and if you think further land reforms are necessary to boost the economy further and give people more confidence.
To have more confidence in economic reforms, for that is necessary to have a very stable political infrastructure and to have a very, very clear feeling about the future. Because if you would ask me, for example, what is the main problem of Russia, general, one word, I would say unpredictability. That's the point. And this is the problem everywhere, on all levels, political or economic, whatever. I would say, honestly, we already have no special economic problems. So we have problems, but we know how to solve them. Everybody knows. The problem now is of the other dimension. The dimension is no independent juridical system, no free press, and no political protection in this sense. This political instability creates the environment which is very unfriendly for investments. So it's not a case of the laws. It's not a case of the machinery which you can implement in the Duma or somewhere else. It's a case of political environment in general. And that would make the people more confident.
Okay, please, at this lodge.
Yes, my name is Ina Simonova. I'm a journalist
Speak a
and
little
historian.
closer to the microphone.
My name is Ina Simonova, and I'm historian and journalist and visiting scholar to Harvard. And I was lucky 10 years ago to be in the same audience and listen to Mr. Yavlinsky. And I remember that it was very interesting talk, and Mr. Yavlinsky, he criticized Mr. Gorbachev. And I remember at the end of the talk, it was put the question if Mr. Yavlinsky knows such a person who can replace Mr. Gorbachev. Yes, said Mr. Yavlinsky, and who is this person? I can't say yet. And now I heard a lot of critics of Mr. Gorbachev, of Mr. Putin, sorry. And can you now name the person who can replace Mr. Putin?
I want to repeat my answer.
Not yet.
So we look forward to asking and answering that question again when the answer becomes clear. This gentleman.
Yes, good evening. My name is Anatol Zakarban. What do you think about Gorbachev's newly created Social Democratic Party and its growing popularity? Do you think it has a chance of growing into a major party in Russia? I take it as a no.
No.
But do you think it may have a connection with the European social democracy, which is the ruling parties there?
No.
No.
It's have no connection to anything.
Well, why is its popularity growing?
That's what I don't know. but I don't know not why the popularity is growing. I don't know that the popularity is growing.
It is. The numbers says so.
You know?
Yes,
that?
I do.
I never heard about that. I think that only two persons in the world have these numbers, you and Mr. Gorbachev.
I think you're wrong.
No, that is true. That is true. By the way, I don't want to comment that because I respect Mr. Gorbachev very much. I don't want to yes, but I'm making a party building for 10 years, so I know what is what. And this is not about this thing. It's not the way of making parties in this way. Gorbachev is an outstanding figure, and I have a very high respect to him. But party building, especially socialist party building, social democratic party building in Russia, would have a very, very difficult fate.
But don't you think it's a good substitute to Communist Party?
They don't think so. Communists don't think so. That's why there is no chance.
Yeah, but the question is what people of Russia think.
They are not. Once again, the problem of this party is that the people are not thinking about this party at all. At all.
Other than that, it's doing great. Okay, please. This gentleman on the left.
My name is Oleg Skopets, and Mr. Ilitsky, I have a question about free press and democratization processes in Russia. When in Czech Republic, in Prague, state tried to impose their own program of director, in the news, 50,000 Czechs took to the streets. And I never heard of such protests in Russia. And if Russians want to democratize and have free press, why so? Thank you.
First of all, I don't want to be unpolite, but I want to say that you have to a little bit to check your ears, because when the NTV was closed, it was the demonstrations in Moscow twice, more than 20,000 people each. And it were the demonstrations in 60 cities of Russia. So it was a kind of protest. Not in the way it was in Prague, but it was in a different way. With the TV6, it didn't happen. It didn't happen for many reasons, but the major reason with the press is, I'll tell you what. The people are deeply dissatisfied in general with what one can call Russian press. We have a prominent and very respected journalists. I can name them. Some of them are even in this audience. But as a press in general, the people don't feel that the press in this last 10 years were really interested in their problems. The people don't feel that the press were protecting them for anything which was coming to them, like crisis 98 or whatever. The press, the people have no chance to have the evidence that the press is investigating the crimes or criminal issues. So the people are much more interested than in entertainment, because it was a problem of the quality of the press. what happens with the press? By political power first ruined the professional press, dequalified professional press by making it yellow, but making different scandals and things like that. And afterwards, nobody came to support or to protect. NTV was supported because NTV was a channel very highly professional, very highly professional. It was one of the best television maybe in Europe. It was a European class television. It was the only thing which was created in Russia on European level, technically and thoughtfully and so on. Secondly, NTV was a television which was touching the very sensitive issues like Chechnya war in a serious way, then nuclear waste, which is just now is a decision to take all nuclear waste from all over the world to Russia. And so that was the only channel which was fighting with this. And although it was manipulated as a private channel, certainly, but it was really professional political television, where every more or less meaningful politician of Russia can have a flaw. Every, whether it is Zhuganov or Zhirinovsky or whoever it is, everybody had a chance to speak there, and very often. And you can compare one with the other. That is the substance of political television. But it was the only one channel of such type. TV6 was not such a channel. They have no time enough for that happens so, but they were not working in the same style. And for all that reasons, this is a drama. The people lost their interest in that, and that's why they were not publicly protecting. Yabloko, my party, was making meetings, but I can tell you honestly that on that meeting in the middle of Moscow, there were more journalists and correspondents than the people in the meeting.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's my responsibility to tell us that the witching hour has come. There are a number of other people who have good questions. I apologize to you. If you come down quickly, it's possible you might be able to ask Grigory your question at the end. But for now, and in the hopes that we get him to come back, the local work rules say we need to stop. So let's please join me in thanking Grigory Yavlinsky for coming and wishing him to come back.
Спасибо большое.
Good. Thank you for coming.